Grenada, Grenadian Creole. Grenada is a sovereign state in the West Indies in the Caribbean Sea at the southern end of the Grenadines island chain. Grenada consists of the island of Grenada itself plus 6 smaller islands which lie to the north of the main island. It is located northwest of Trinidad and Tobago, northeast of Venezuela and southwest of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Its size is, and it had an estimated population of 112,200 in July 2018. Its capital is St. George's. The national bird of Grenada is the critically endangered Grenada dove. Before the arrival of Europeans in the Americas, Grenada was inhabited by the indigenous Arawaks and later by the island Caribs. By the beginning of the 18th century, the name Grenada, or La Grenade in French, was in common use. On his third voyage to the region in 1498, Christopher Columbus sighted Grenada and named it La Conception in honor of the Virgin Mary. It is said that he may have actually named it Assumption, but it is uncertain, as he is said to have sighted what are now Grenada and Tobago from a distance and named them both at the same time. However, it became accepted that he named Tobago Assumption and Grenada La Conception. After French settlement and colonization in 1652, the French named their colony La Grenade. On the 10th of February 1763, the island of La Grenade was ceded to the British under the Treaty of Paris. The British renamed it Grenada, one of many place name anglicizations they carried out on the island during this time.
History. Pre-colonial history.
Grenada was first populated by peoples from South America, possibly during the Caribbean Archaic Age, although definitive evidence is lacking. The earliest potential human presence comes from proxy evidence of lake cores, beginning 3600 BC. Less ephemeral, permanent villages began around AD 300. The population peaked between AD 750 to 1250, with major changes in population afterwards, potentially the result of regional droughts and/or the Carib invasion, although the latter rests on highly circumstantial evidence.
European arrival.
It is thought that Christopher Columbus was the first European to see Grenada in 1498 during his third voyage, naming it Conception. The Spanish did not follow up on this, and it was the English who were the first to attempt to colonize the island in 1609. However, they were beaten off by the native Carib peoples.
French colony 1649 to 1763.
In 1649 a French expedition of 203 men from Martinique led by Jacques d'Isle du Parquet founded a permanent settlement on Grenada. This lasted until 1654 when the island was completely subjugated by the French. The indigenous peoples who survived either left for neighboring islands or retreated to remoter parts of Grenada, where they ultimately disappeared during the 1700s. Warfare continued during the 1600s between the French on Grenada and the Caribs of present-day Dominica and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The French named their new colony La Grenade, and the economy was initially based on sugar cane and indigo, worked by African slaves. The French established a capital known as Fort Royal, later St. George's. To shelter from hurricanes, the French Navy would often take refuge in the capital's natural harbour, as no nearby French islands had a natural harbour to compare with it of Fort Royal. The British captured Grenada during the 7 Years' War in 1762. As Grenada's economy grew, more and more African slaves were forcibly transported to the island. Britain eventually outlawed the slave trade within the British Empire in 1807, and slavery was outlawed completely in 1834. In an effort to ameliorate the subsequent labor shortage, migrants from India were brought to Grenada in 1857. Nutmeg was introduced to Grenada in 1843 when a merchant ship called in on its way to England from the East Indies.
Late colonial period.
In 1877 Grenada was made a crown colony. Theophilus A. Marichaud founded the Representative Government Association RGA in 1917 to agitate for a new and participative constitutional dispensation for the Grenadian people, partly as a result of Marichaud's lobbying. The Wood Commission of 1921-22 concluded that Grenada was ready for constitutional reform in the form of a modified Crown Colony government. This modification granted Grenadians the right to elect 5 of the 15 members of the Legislative Council, on a restricted property franchise enabling the wealthiest 4% of adult Grenadians to vote. Marichaud was named a Commander of the Order of the British Empire (CBE) in 1943. In 1950 Eric Gairy founded the Grenada United Labour Party (GULP), initially as a trade union, which led the 1951 general strike for better working conditions. This sparked great unrest, so many buildings were set ablaze that the disturbances became known as the Red Sky Days, and the British authorities decided to call in military reinforcements to help regain control of the situation. On the 10th of October 1951, Grenada held its first general elections on the basis of universal adult suffrage, with Gairy's party winning 6 of the 8 seats contested. On the 13th of March 1979, whilst Gairy was out of the country, the NJM launched a bloodless coup which removed Gairy, suspended the constitution, and established a People's Revolutionary Government (PRG), headed by Maurice Bishop, who declared himself Prime Minister. After the execution of Bishop, the People's Revolutionary Army (PRA) formed a government with General Hudson Austin as chairman. The army declared a 4-day total curfew, during which anyone leaving their home without approval was, for a short period, threatened to be shot on sight, although this policy was barely enforced.
United States and Allied response and reaction.
The independent streak of the Grenadian government concerned the administration of U.S. President Ronald Reagan. Reagan also claimed that particularly worrying was the presence of Cuban construction workers and military personnel building an airstrip on Grenada. Bishop had stated the purpose of the airstrip was to allow commercial jets to land, but some U.S. military analysts argued that the only reason for constructing such a long and reinforced runway was so that it could be used by heavy military transport planes. The contractors, American and European companies, and the EC, which provided partial funding, all claimed the airstrip did not have military capabilities. On the 25th of October 1983, combined forces from the United States and from the Regional Security System RSS based in Barbados invaded Grenada in an operation codenamed Operation Urgent Fury. The U.S. stated this was done at the behest of the governments of Barbados and Dominica and the Governor-General of Grenada, Sir Paul Scoon. Progress was rapid, and within 4 days the Americans had removed the military government of Hudson Austin. The invasion was heavily criticized by the governments of Britain, Trinidad, and Tobago, and Canada. The United Nations General Assembly condemned it as a flagrant violation of international law by a vote of 108 in favor to 9, with 27 abstentions. The United Nations Security Council considered a similar resolution, which was supported by 11 nations. However, the United States vetoed the motion.
Post-invasion arrests.
After the invasion, the pre-revolutionary Grenadian constitution came into operation once again. 18 members of the PRG/PRA were arrested on charges related to the murder of Maurice Bishop and 7 others. The 18 included the top political leadership of Grenada at the time of the execution, along with the entire military chain of command directly responsible for the operation that led to the executions. 14 were sentenced to death, 1 was found not guilty, and 3 were sentenced to 45 years in prison. The death sentences were eventually commuted to terms of imprisonment. Those in prison have become known as the Grenada 17.
Grenada since 1983.
When U.S. troops withdrew from Grenada in December 1983, Nicolas Brathwaite of the National Democratic Congress was appointed Prime Minister of an interim administration by Governor-General Schoon until elections could be organized. Ben Jones briefly succeeded Blaise as Prime Minister and served until the March 1990 election, which was won by the National Democratic Congress under Nicolas Brathwaite, who returned as Prime Minister for a second time until he resigned in February 1995. He was succeeded by George Brison, who served for a brief period until the June 1995 election, which was won by the New National Party under Keith Mitchell, who went on to win the 1999 and 2003 elections, serving for a record 13 years until 2008. Patterson also uncovered that there was still a lot of resentment in Grenadian society resulting from the era and a feeling that there were many injustices still unaddressed. On the 7th of September 2004, after being hurricane-free for 49 years, the island was directly hit by Hurricane Ivan. Ivan struck as a Category 3 hurricane, resulting in 39 deaths and damage or destruction to 90% of the island's homes. Agriculture, and in particular the nutmeg industry, suffered serious losses, but that event has begun changes in crop management, and it is hoped that as new nutmeg trees gradually mature, the industry will gradually rebuild. Mitchell was defeated in the 2008 election by the NDC under Tillman Thomas. However, he won the 2013 Grenadian general election by a landslide and the NNP returned to power, winning again in 2018.
Geography.
The island of Grenada is the southernmost island in the Antilles archipelago, bordering the eastern Caribbean Sea and western Atlantic Ocean, and roughly north of both Venezuela and Trinidad and Tobago. Its sister islands make up the southern section of the Grenadines, which include Carriac, Petite Martinique, Ronde Island, Gale Island, Diamond Island, Large Island, Saline Island, and Frigate Island. The remaining islands to the north belong to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Most of the population lives on Grenada, and major towns there include the capital, St. George's, Grenville and Guayave. The largest settlement on the sister islands is Hillsborough on Carriac. Grenada is of volcanic origin. Grenada entered into the Inter-American System in 1975 according to the OASIS website.
Double Taxation Relief CARICOM Treaty.
On the 6th of July 1994 at Sherborne Conference Centre in St. Michael, Barbados, George Brison signed the Double Taxation Relief CARICOM Treaty on behalf of the Government of Grenada. This treaty covered concepts such as taxes, residence tax jurisdictions, capital gains, business profits, interest, dividends, royalties and other areas.
FATCA.
On the 30th of June 2014, Grenada signed a Model 1 agreement with the United States of America in relation to Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act FATCA.
Military.
Grenada has no standing military, leaving typical military functions to the Royal Grenada Police Force, including a special service unit and the Coast Guard of Grenada.
Administrative divisions.
Grenada is divided into 6 parishes.
Economy.
Grenada has a small economy in which tourism is the major foreign exchange earner. Grenada has suffered from a heavy external debt problem, with government debt service payments running at about 25% of total revenues in 2017. Grenada was listed as 9th from bottom in a study of 126 developing countries.
Agriculture and exports.
Grenada is an exporter of several different spices, most notably nutmeg, its top export and depicted on the national flag, and mace. Other major exports include bananas, cocoa, fruit and vegetables, clothing, chocolate and fish. Grenada's many waterfalls are also popular with tourists. The nearest to St. George's is the Annandale Waterfalls, but other notable ones like Mount Carmel, Concord, Seven Sisters and Tufton Hall also being within easy reach.
Festivals.
Several festivals also draw in tourists, such as Carrick Maroon and String Band Music Festival in April, the Island Water World Sailing Week and the Grenada Sailing Festival Workboat Regatta.
Education.
Education in Grenada consists of kindergarten, pre-primary school, primary school, secondary school and tertiary education. The government has prioritized education, spending 10.3% of its budget to the sector in 2016, the third highest rate in the world. T. A. Mauricio Community College U Open Campus in Grenada. New Life Organization NUO.
Transport.
Maurice Bishop International Airport is Grenada's main airport. Protestant 49.2%, includes Pentecostal 17.2%, Seventh-day Adventist 13.2%, Anglican 8.5%, Baptist 3.2%, Church of God 2.4%, Evangelical 1.9%, Methodist 1.6%, Other 1.2%, Roman Catholic 36%, None 5.7%, Unspecified 1.3%, Jehovah's Witness 1.2%, Rastafarian 1.2%, Other 5.5%.
Languages.
English is the country's official language. The name refers to a dish cooked in coconut milk until all the milk is absorbed, leaving a bit of coconut oil in the bottom of the pot. Early recipes call for a mixture of salted pigtail, pig's feet trotters, salt beef and chicken, dumplings made from flour, and provision like breadfruit, green banana, yam and potatoes. Calla leaves are sometimes used to retain the steam and add extra flavor. As well as having previously played 2020 cricket in the Stanford 2020. The Grenada National Cricket Stadium in St. George's hosts domestic and international cricket matches. Devon Smith, West Indies record holder to win the List A West Indian domestic competition for the second time, was born in the small town of Hermitage. In April 2007, Grenada jointly hosted along with several other Caribbean nations the 2007 Cricket World Cup. The island's Prime Minister was the CARICOM representative on cricket and was instrumental in having the World Cup games brought to the region. After Hurricane Ivan, the government of the People's Republic of China (PRC) paid for the new $40 million national stadium and provided the aid of over 300 laborers to build and repair it. During the opening ceremony, the anthem of the Republic of China Rock. Caribbeans inhabited Grenada when Christopher Columbus discovered the island in 1498, but it remained uncolonized for more than a century. The French settled Grenada in the 17th century, established sugar estates, and imported large numbers of African slaves. Britain took the island in 1762 and vigorously expanded sugar production. In the 19th century, cacao eventually surpassed sugar as the main export crop. In the 20th century, nutmeg became the leading export. In 1967, Britain gave Grenada autonomy over its internal affairs. Full independence was attained in 1974, making Grenada one of the smallest independent countries in the Western Hemisphere. In 1979, a leftist New Dual movement seized power under Maurice Bishop, ushering in the Grenada Revolution. On the 19th of October 1983, factions within the revolutionary government overthrew and killed Bishop and members of his party. 6 days later, the island was invaded by U.S. forces and those of 6 other Caribbean nations, which quickly captured the ringleaders and their hundreds of Cuban advisors. The rule of law was restored and democratic elections were reinstituted the following year and have continued since then.
Geography.
Grenada.
Location.
Caribbean, island between the Caribbean Sea and Atlantic Ocean. north of Trinidad and Tobago.
Geographic coordinates.
1207 N, 6140 W.
Map references.
Central America and the Caribbean.
Area.
Total.
344 square kilometers.
Land.
344 square kilometers.
Water.
0 square kilometers.
Country comparison to the world.
208.
Area. Comparative.
Twice the size of Washington, D.C.
Area comparison map.
Area comparison map.
Land boundaries.
0 kilometers.
Coastline.
121 kilometers.
Maritime claims.
Territorial sea.
12 nanometers.
Exclusive economic zone.
200 nanometers.
Climate.
Tropical, tempered by northeast trade winds.
Terrain.
Volcanic in origin with central mountains.
Elevation.
Lowest point.
Caribbean Sea 0m.
Highest point.
Mount St. Catherine 840m.
Natural resources.
Timber, tropical fruit.
Land use.
Agricultural land.
32.3%.
Arable land.
8.8%. Permanent crops.
20.6%. / permanent pasture.
2.9%.
Forest.
50%.
Other.
17.7%.
Irrigated land.
20 square kilometers.
Population distribution.
Approximately 1/3 of the population is found in the capital of St. George's. The island's population is concentrated along the coast.
Natural hazards.
Lies on edge of hurricane belt. Hurricane season lasts from June to November.
Volcanism.
Mount St. Catherine, 840 meters, lies on the island of Grenada. Kikamjeni, an active submarine volcano, seamount, on the Caribbean sea floor, lies about 8 kilometers north of the island of Grenada. These two volcanoes are at the southern end of the volcanic island arc of the Lesser Antilles that extends up to the Netherlands dependency of Saba in the north.
Environment. Current issues.
Deforestation causing habitat destruction and species loss, coastal erosion and contamination, pollution and sedimentation, inadequate solid waste management.
Environment. International agreements.
Party 2.
Biodiversity. Climate change Kyoto Protocol, desertification, endangered species, law of the sea, ozone layer protection, whaling.
Signed, but not ratified.
None of the selected agreements.
Geography. Note.
The administration of the islands of the Grenadines group is divided between St. Vincent and the Grenadines and Grenada.
People and society.
Grenada.
Population.
113,094.
Country comparison to the world.
190.
Nationality.
Noun.
Grenadians.
Adjective.
Grenadian.
Ethnic groups.
African descent 82.4%, mixed 13.3%, East Indian 2.2%, other 1.3%, unspecified 0.9%.
Languages. English,
Official, French patois.
Religions.
Protestant 49.2%, includes Pentecostal 17.2%, Seventh-day Adventist 13.2%, Anglican 8.5%, Baptist 3.2%, Church of God 2.4%, Evangelical 1.9%, Methodist 1.6%, other 1.2%. Roman Catholic 36%, Jehovah's Witness 1.2%, Rastafarian 1.2%, other 5.5%, non-5.7%, unspecified 1.3%.
Age structure.
0 to 14 years.
23.23%, male 13,709, female 12,564.
15 to 24 years.
14.14%, male 8,034, female 7,959.
25 to 54 years.
40.05%, male 23,104, female 22,187.
55 to 64 years.
11.69%, male 6,734. Female 6,490.
65 years and over.
10.89%. Male 5,774. Female 6,539.
Population pyramid.
Population pyramid.
Dependency ratios. Dependency ratios are a measure of the age structure of a population. They relate the number of individuals that are likely to be economically dependent on the support of others. Dependency ratios contrast the ratio of youths, ages 0 to 14, and the elderly, ages 65 plus, to the number of those in the working age group, ages 15 to 64. Changes in the dependency ratio provide an indication of potential social support requirements resulting from changes in population age structures. As fertility level. More dependency ratios. Field listing.
Total dependency ratio
50.5.
Youth dependency ratio
35.8.
Elderly dependency ratio
14.7.
Potential support ratio
6.8.
Median age
Total.
33.3 years.
Male.
33.1 years.
Female.
33.4 years.
Country comparison to the world.
99.
Population growth rate. The average annual percent change in the population, resulting from a surplus, or deficit, of births over deaths and the balance of migrants entering and leaving a country. The rate may be positive or negative. The growth rate is a factor in determining how great a burden would be imposed on a country by the changing needs of its people for infrastructure, for example, schools, hospitals, housing, roads, resources, for example, food, water, electricity, and jobs. Rapid population growth can be seen as more population growth rate. Field listing.
0.38%.
Country comparison to the world.
164.
Birth rate.
14.6 births out of 1,000 population.
Country comparison to the world.
125.
Death rate.
8.3 deaths out of 1,000 population.
Country comparison to the world.
78.
Net migration rate.
Minus 2.6 migrant s out of 1,000 population.
Country comparison to the world.
171.
Population distribution.
Approximately one-third of the population is found in the capital of St. George's. The island's population is concentrated along the coast.
Urbanization.
Urban population.
36.5% of total population, 2020.
Rate of urbanization.
0.76% annual rate of change.
Major urban areas. Population.
39,000 St. George's, capital.
Sex ratio.
At birth.
1.1 male every 1 female.
0 to 14 years.
1.09 male every 1 female.
15 to 24 years.
1.01 male every 1 female.
25 to 54 years.
1.04 male every 1 female.
55 to 64 years.
1.04 male every 1 female.
65 years and over.
0.88 male every 1 female.
Total population.
1.03 male every 1 female.
Maternal mortality rate. The maternal mortality rate, MMR, is the annual number of female deaths per 100,000 live births from any cause related to or aggravated by pregnancy or its management, excluding accidental or incidental causes. The MMR includes deaths during pregnancy, childbirth, on within 42 days of termination of pregnancy, irrespective of the duration and site of the pregnancy, for a specified year. Maternal mortality rate. Field listing.
25 deaths/100,000 live births.
Country comparison to the world.
122.
Infant mortality rate.
Total.
8.9 deaths out of 1,000 live births.
Male.
8.6 deaths out of 1,000 live births.
Female.
9.4 deaths out of 1,000 live births.
Country comparison to the world.
141.
Life expectancy at birth.
Total population.
75.2 years.
Male.
72.6 years.
Female.
78.1 years.
Country comparison to the world.
119.
Total fertility rate.
1.96 children born/woman.
Country comparison to the world.
116.
Drinking water source.
Improved.
Urban.
99% of population.
Rural.
95.3% of population.
Total.
96.6% of population.
Unimproved.
Urban.
1% of population.
Rural.
4.7% of population.
Total.
3.4% of population.
Current health expenditure: current health expenditure, CHE, describes the share of spending on health in each country relative to the size of its economy. It includes expenditures corresponding to the final consumption of healthcare goods and services and excludes investment, exports, and intermediate consumption. CHE shows the importance of the health sector in the economy and indicates the priority given to health in monetary terms. Note:
Current health expenditure replaces the former health expenditures field. More current health expenditure field listing.
5.2%.
Physicians density.
1.45 physicians out of 1,000 population.
Hospital bed density.
3.7 beds out of 1,000 population.
Sanitation facility access.
Improved.
Urban.
97.5% of population.
Rural.
98.3% of population.
Total.
98% of population.
Unimproved.
Urban.
2.5% of population.
Rural.
1.7% of population.
Total.
2% of population.
HIV/AIDS adult prevalence rate.
0.5%.
Country comparison to the world.
70.
HIV/AIDS people living with HIV/AIDS.
21.3%.
Country comparison to the world.
90.
Education expenditures.
3.2% of GDP.
Country comparison to the world.
131.
Literacy.
Definition.
Age 15 and over can read and write.
Total population.
98.6%.
Male.
98.6%.
Female.
98.6%.
School life expectancy. Primary to tertiary education, school life expectancy, SLE, is the total number of years of schooling, primary to tertiary, that a child can expect to receive, assuming that the probability of his or her being enrolled in school at any particular future age is equal to the current enrollment ratio at that age. Caution must be maintained when utilizing this indicator in international comparisons. For example, a year or grade completed in one country is not necessarily the same in terms of educational content or quality. More school life expectancy, primary to tertiary education, field listing.
Total.
17 years.
Male.
16 years.
Female.
17 years.
Government.
Grenada.
Country name.
Conventional long form.
None.
Conventional short form.
Grenada.
Etymology.
Derivation of the name remains obscure. Some sources attribute the designation to Spanish influence, most likely named for the Spanish city of Grenada, with subsequent French and English interpretations resulting in the present-day Grenada. In Spanish, Grenada means pomegranate.
Government type.
Parliamentary democracy under a constitutional monarchy. A Commonwealth realm.
Capital.
Name.
St. George's.
Geographic coordinates.
1203 N, 6145 W.
Time difference.
UTC-4, 1 hour ahead of Washington, D.C., during Standard Time.
Etymology.
The 1763 Treaty of Paris transferred possession of Grenada from France to Great Britain. The new administration renamed Ville de Fort Royal Town, to St. George's Town, after the patron saint of England. Eventually the name became simply St. George's.
Administrative divisions.
6 parishes and 1 dependency: Carriac and Petite Martinique, St. Andrew, St. David, St. George, St. John, St. Mark, St. Patrick.
Independence: for most countries, this entry gives the date that sovereignty was achieved and from which nation, empire, or trusteeship. For the other countries, the date given may not represent independence in the strict sense, but rather some significant nationhood event such as the traditional founding date or the date of unification, federation, confederation, establishment, fundamental change in the form of government, or state succession. For a number of countries, the establishment of statehood. More independence field listing.
The 7th of February 1974, from the UK.
National holiday.
Independence Day, the 7th of February, 1974.
Constitution.
History.
Previous 1967, latest presented the 19th of December 1973, effective the 7th of February 1974, Suspended 1979 following a revolution but restored in 1983.
Amendments.
Proposed by either House of Parliament. Passage requires 2/3 majority vote by the membership in both houses in assent of the Governor-General. Passage of amendments to constitutional sections, such as personal rights and freedoms, the structure, authorities, and procedures of the branches of government, the delimitation of electoral constituencies, or the procedure for amending the Constitution, also requires 2/3 majority approval in a referendum. Amended 1991, 1992.
Legal system.
Common law based on English model.
International law organization participation.
Has not submitted an ICJ jurisdiction declaration. Accepts ICJ jurisdiction.
Citizenship.
Citizenship by birth.
Yes.
Citizenship by descent only.
Yes.
Dual citizenship recognized.
Yes.
Residency requirement for naturalization.
7 years for persons from a non-Caribbean state and 4 years for a person from a Caribbean state.
Suffrage.
18 years of age. Universal.
Executive branch.
Chief of State.
Queen Elizabeth II. Since the 6th of February 1952. Represented by Governor-General Cecile L. Grenada. Since the 7th of May 2013.
Head of Government.
Prime Minister Keith Mitchell. Since the 20th of February 2013.
Cabinet.
Cabinet appointed by the Governor-General on the advice of the Prime Minister.
Elections. Appointments.
The monarchy is hereditary. Governor-General appointed by the monarch. Following legislative elections, the leader of the majority party or majority coalition usually appointed Prime Minister by the Governor-General.
Legislative branch.
Description.
Bicameral parliament consists of
Senate, 13 seats. Members appointed by the Governor-General -10 on the advice of the Prime Minister and 3 on the advice of the leader of the opposition party. Members serve 5-year terms.
House of Representatives, 15 seats. Members directly elected in single-seat constituencies by simple majority vote to serve 5-year terms.
Elections.
Senate, last appointments on the 27th of April 2018. Next no later than 2023.
House of Representatives, last held on the 13th of March 2018. Next no later than 2023.
Election results.
Senate, percent by party, NA. Seats by party, NA. Composition, men 11, women 2% of women 15.4%.
House of Representatives, percent of vote by party, NNP 58.9%, NDC 40.5%, other 0.6% seats by party, NNP 15, composition, men 8, women 7%, of women 46.7%, note, total parliament percent of women 32.1%.
Judicial branch.
Highest courts.
Regionally, the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court, ECSC, is the superior court of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States. The ECSC, headquartered on St. Lucia, consists of the Court of Appeal, headed by the Chief Justice and 4 judges, and the High Court with 18 judges. The Court of Appeal is itinerant, traveling to member states on a schedule to hear appeals from the High Court in subordinate courts. High Court judges reside in the member states, with 2 in Grenada. Appeals beyond the ECSC in civil and criminal matters are heard by the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council, in London.
Judge selection and term of office.
Chief Justice of Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court appointed by Her Majesty, Queen Elizabeth II. Other justices and judges appointed by the Judicial and Legal Services Commission, an independent body of judicial officials. Court of Appeal justices appointed for life with mandatory retirement at age 65. High Court judges appointed for life with mandatory retirement at age 62.
Subordinate courts.
Magistrates' courts. Court of Magisterial Appeals.
Political parties and leaders.
National Democratic Congress or NDC. Nazimburg.
New National Party or NNP. Keith Mitchell.